What's up? I'm Ayla.
Hi, I'm Beth Ann.
And this is Let's Talk BL, a Boys Love podcast.
Welcome back to the podcast. It is Sunday, Series Sunday, the day of the week where we talk all about one series and one series only, chock full of spoilers. So if you have not watched the series, you are probably living under a rock.
Yeah, I don't think there's one person that hasn't watched this series. So also, here's what I'll say, and this is going to be very dividing. People are going to cancel me. People are going to hate me. People are going to send death threats to my home.
People
I feel
gonna fully understand.
People already kind of hate me. People are just going to hate me more. Like, people are going to get like violently hateful to me. I feel like even if you haven't watched this, you can still listen to the series Sunday.
I feel like
you'll be fine if you don't watch this show.
I feel like this is one of those shows that is geared towards a specific audience. Because here's the thing, in BL, you have two extremes. You have the people who watch shows for like a deep storyline and like meaning and whatever. And then you have people who watch shows for the entertainment, for the spice, for just like two boys kissing on screen. And then you have people who like fall in the middle, who will kind of just watch everything. And they're like, if they don't kiss, whatever. If they do kiss, great. But like, you have that kind of range. And a lot of times the spicy shows get more attention because the general population tends to like the spice, or they're like intrigued by the spice. And so I feel like that's what happens with Me Mind Why shows, especially thinking back to Tarn Type, because people were so excited about Tarn Type because of Mugolf, because of the implied spice of Mugolf, I think. And because of just like,
I mean, in Tarn Type, there was no implied spice. There was actual spice.
Of
like
Mugolf. Not of Tarn Type, but like of Mugolf. Like, I think Tarn Type was popular because Mugolf. Don't Say No was amazing because it was Don't Say No.
Right. Don't Say No, I feel like was everything. Yeah, like I don't see people who look for a deep storyline as like extremists. Like, I feel like you can want to have a solid storyline and not be like a crazy extremist that doesn't like spice and is like, this isn't like, this shouldn't be in BL.
I'm not talking about extremists. I'm talking about there are two ends of a spectrum of like why people go to a show. You have one group over here. You have one group. I think the people who watch for like the depth and the storyline are on the opposite end of people who watch for the spice. There's not really people who are like, I just want to see two boys making out who care about a storyline.
I don't know. I feel like you can want both.
No, well, and that's why I say there are people that fall in the middle, because I would say I'm pretty middle of the road. I watch everything. I don't watch, like, I really love Cherry Magic, and I really love a lot of the Taiwanese shows who usually just have a kiss at the end. I really love the Japanese shows that have like barely a kiss at the end. And so I feel like there's kind of that range of fans. So we're talking Love in the Air, of course.
Yes.
Let's get to the nuts and bolts before we actually talk about the show, because I feel like it's going to be fun.
Sure.
Okay, it's on iQIYI. It's 13 episodes. As we said, it's from Me Mind Why.
It is.
Which is an interesting thing. There's a special episode that's coming out on Vimeo. Go buy your special episode.
If you want to. I know a lot of people that never watched the Don't Say No special episode, and I don't think that they had a worse like experience. No. I don't think it made them less of a Joffers fan. I don't think it. I feel like I think there were no implications if you didn't watch the Don't Say No special episode.
It had no storyline implications. No.
I mean, a little bit, right? I mean, I won't spoil it because this is not a Don't Say No episode, but like it did sort of extend the storyline. You got like a little bit more for those characters, but it didn't change anything drastically.
No, it was just them being boyfriends.
Right.
Yeah.
But like, I think a lot of people, anyways, this is not a Don't Say No episode, but I think that it did serve a purpose if you liked those characters.
Yeah.
And like you did get more to them, at least from that special episode. But I don't think if you like didn't buy it because you just like couldn't or didn't want to spend the money for it, I don't think it made you like less of a Joffers fan or less of a Don't Say No fan, or that it like ruined your experience in any way.
No, it, like what you said, it's being able to see these characters more,
right?
Kind of like a second
you learn a little bit more about them. You see, because at that point they've like moved past their like main conflict, right? So you're seeing them in like a happy relationship, basically, sweet. Which is something, so like
It's enjoyable.
Potentially that's what will happen with this Love in the Air special episode, but I think if you can't spend the money,
it's just a honeymoon episode is what I think it'll be.
If you can't spend the money or don't want to spend the money on this special episode, I actually feel like no shame. Like there's no shame or shade. It's like I don't think it makes you less of a fan. I think
you'll see all the content on Twitter anyways.
Lots of implications, especially like I've seen a lot of discourse on Twitter, like especially with the cutie pie stuff. Like if you're not gonna buy the box set and this or that and blah blah blah, and like you need to support Zinunu, and I'm like, whoa guys,
well,
not wanting to or not being able to spend extra money on like extra scenes and extra things doesn't mean that you're not supporting an actor, an idol, or a company.
Right.
That's a bit extreme.
I feel like there's kind of what I've seen is just an equal amount of people who are like, I'm poor, I can't afford all of the like financial commitments. It's really nice when these things are accessible like on YouTube or on any of these non-paid platforms, which is always really nice.
I also think there's no shame in a company putting these things out as like a paid thing because companies have to make money in order to keep making BLs. So like there's no shame on either side. So
especially if your show is popular, like hello, capitalize on it. Absolutely.
Again, like making money is how these actors get paid, which ultimately is going to get them way more money than like buying a special episode or not buying a special episode. Like is getting them a whole new series that the company can now afford to make, right? So like I don't know, buy the special episode if you are really attached to these characters and if you're able, but if you're not able, it doesn't make you any less of a fan.
Okay, it stars as Rain Noen. It's hard to say his name because to us it looks like Noel, but because of the way that they pronounce their L's.
Here's the other thing I'm going to say about this. Because I was thinking really hard about this today because I was like trying to drill it into my head for this episode to like so that I could say it right and talk about it right. And I was like, okay, we need to collectively stop shaming each other in terms of how we say things because I keep thinking back to Tool.
Oh my gosh, Tool and the
name. I keep thinking back to Tool. No, and here's why.
Tyler.
No, here's the thing. If you are Thai and in the Thai language, yes, the L is the romanized L is pronounced as an N. And so Tool, and there are a couple of examples of this, but like Tool is, I think, the most accessible one that everyone has heard of. Right. And I saw a wonderful, wonderful tweet where there was someone on Twitter going around shaming everybody and like talking mad shit about people for when they're like, if I hear someone put an L at the end of it, I cringe. Like they blah, 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 blah. And it was like really, really kind of like attacking people. And this super awesome fan who's amazing, who has been with Max Tool forever and who's been with Tool forever and who like has interacted with Tool a million times. And we interacted with Tool a million times, or not a million times, but like long enough for like an hour and a half.
Right.
That like Tool does not have a problem with you saying his name Tool. Right? Like when we said
Tool,
well, he doesn't like the Tool, but Tool.
Right. I feel like
he never corrects anybody. And this amazing fan pointed that out and basically was like, we need to stop shaming people. They're not doing this purposely. Right. It's not meant as an act of disrespect. And so again, it's romanized in a specific way. It's romanized as Noel. If you pronounce it Noel, Noel.
Which is funny because there's another actor in this show named Ford. His name is Ford because in an interview he's like, I'm named after the car company, but he romanizes it with a T because in Thai the D and the T are pretty like interchangeable. And so I was like, wait a second, but you have like an actual brand that like romanized it for you if you're named after the car company.
And I was thinking really hard about this and I was just thinking about like the shame, just because I just happen to
it's
on
also
our
a Korean
feed,
word,
have been seeing a bunch of like people shaming people about not being the right kind of fan and not being like.
Well, the great thing about the internet is that you don't have to pay attention to those.
And
people.
So that's what I want to say is like if you pronounce it Nun, amazing.
Right.
If you pronounce it Nul, I don't think you have bad intention behind you because Tool is the best example of this because like there are some boys that catch on to it. So like Pawn, previously of Star Hunter, now he's an independent artist. When he first came out on the scene, he actually romanized his name Pol with an L at the end.
Right.
But his name is pronounced pawn. And so he changed his romanization, I think, when he realized, like, oh, this is confusing the international fans. And so now he romanizes his name Pon because he cared about that kind of thing.
Right.
If Tool cared about that, if Noel cared about that, they would change the romanization of their names like Pawn did.
I mean, after having a conversation with an actor where he's like, yeah, call me whatever, I was like, Lord of mercy. As someone who really cares that people say their name right, like, I really care because, like, I get called Mary Beth or Mary Ann or, like, whatever.
Oh, yeah, I don't care. People mess up my name. I could give you a list of the crazy ass things I've been called when people just look at it.
If people care, they will let you know.
Yeah.
And until one of these boys is like, say my name this way,
right? Like,
which
God,
which we do in
like
our
God.
Oh my God.
Okay, again, no, this is another really great example.
Funny.
Is that, like, the ones that care specifically, and, like, you do it with the boys, you're like, no, Beth Ann. Like,
yeah.
And versus I'm like, I don't know, say it, like, if you deign to even like,
because they get your name right immediately.
Well, but I don't ever expect them to even say my name or remember my name. Like, I am certainly not important enough for them to, like,
okay, I feel like you're avoiding
do anything
the topic
with my name.
I feel like
I'm just saying, like, I'm pretty over people shaming each other for things. So, like, let's not get into Noon or Null. If you care about him and you're trying to pronounce it and support him, that's all that matters.
Okay, we have Paiyu, played by Boss. We have Sky, played by Pete, which another funny name story. He apparently used to be Peach, and then he was like, it's cooler to sound like Pete.
Cool.
And then Prapai, played by Fort.
Yes.
Go for it.
Okay, synopsis time. When clouds in the sky and falling rain tease the two close friends in trouble, Rain and Sky, it takes them to meet Paiyu and Pai, who are not only cunning saviors, but also guys making storms in the two best friends' hearts. The war of love is about to take place in the warm spring, hot summer, lonely autumn, and cold winter. How would the atmosphere of love be? Which way would their hearts wave and the air full of love take them to?
I mean, that's a pretty, like, poetic synopsis.
No, it doesn't make any sense. Which way would their hearts wave? Doesn't make any sense.
I mean, they're going with, like, a weather theme. I love the war of love is about to take place in the warm spring, hot summer, lonely autumn, and cold winter, as if Thailand had seasons.
Right.
Okay, this is an interesting show because it's broken up in two parts with two completely different storylines that are going parallel to each other up to a certain point. And then, like, I think Sky and Pai continue on, like, they go ahead. Like, you have Paiyu and Rain are going, and Pai and Sky are going, and then once they finish the Paiyu Rain, Pai and Sky are at a certain point, and then they've become boyfriends. So then they continue. Pai and Sky continue on, like, their storyline. Does that make sense?
Interesting. That's definitely not how I read it, but, like, cool.
Which is why we get flashbacks to the first part of the series during Pai and Sky, so that they kind of show you where the storyline of Paiyu and Rain is throughout their storyline.
Yeah.
Anyways,
I really hated the pacing in this. I think that's what, like, made it hard for me to watch this show. Like, I really truly had to power through this freaking show. Like, I was like, I had to give myself like pep talks in the mirror before every episode. I was like, you can do this. You got this. You can do this.
I think this is an interesting one because I enjoyed this series. I really love this series. I would rewatch it on a nightly basis because it's just an easy story to watch. And like I said before, I really like these actors, the way that they interact, the way that they bounce off each other, especially Pai and Sky. I think the actor who plays Pai is so good. Like, he has such sweet emotion when he's interacting with Sky, and I love when the big ones go soft. Like, when the big fuck boys are, like, all in absolute devotion. I love that trope. So yeah. But yeah, with with Paiyu and Rain, it started very toxic, very questionable.
Listen, a storyline can start toxic and like develop out of that. Like that's the whole point
Which
of
it
character
did,
development.
yeah.
Like
I thought it very much did.
I don't know that I would agree with that.
Oh, interesting.
I think it started toxic and then got a little less toxic, but never actually resolved the toxicity.
Well, and you know what's funny? I was laughing because when we decided to do this series Sunday and you were gonna have to watch it, somebody DM'd and was like, I saw this breakdown on Twitter about how Paiyu and Rain's relationship is very dom sub in like the BDSM world.
Right.
And I was like, oh my God, Ayla's gonna hate this. Because it's it's like very 50 Shades of Grey. Like the whole storyline is their cat and mouse of like basically Paiyu convincing Rain to pursue him, because right at the end you find out that Paiyu has like orchestrated kind of them coming together, and then he's challenging Rain to be like, you have to make me fall in love with you, and like all this kind of stuff. And so it's a very like back and forth cat and mouse of like, it's just about these two boys getting together.
Sure.
Just funny.
I don't know. Like, again, I wouldn't say that like we decided to do this. I would say I was bullied into doing this. But
by who?
I don't. I feel like I sometimes get a bad rap in that I don't actually have a problem with the spice. I have a problem when the whole show is about spice and there's nothing else to it. Like if every plot point is simply to set up a sex scene, like I don't love that. Like that's not a story to me. Like to me, that's not like how is that interesting? So it's not that I like don't like spice or have a problem with spice or am this like raging prude, like, which I feel like I'm very much like tend to like be portrayed as. It's more that like I want to watch a story, like, and if there's if spice comes along with that, that's awesome, that's great. But if every single plot point is so that we can set up a sex scene, it's just boring to me. Like porn is free on the internet is what I'll say. Like,
which again, I didn't see that in this show. Like there's each character couple had 8 episodes, and there were only 2 sex scenes in the first storyline. There was a kiss scene, but there was only 2 sex scenes. And so, but I really like the first storyline mainly because it felt very K-drama, because like at the last minute you have like this kidnapping because, you know, he's like challenged his like the like villain, like there's an actual villain.
See, I kind of felt like when I was watching it, I was like, all of this is like he's just trying to drive him back into bed. Like he's not actually trying to drive him to like do anything. Like I didn't feel a plot there. Like even if yes, like there were only 2 sex scenes, the whole point of it was to like get him back in bed.
Interesting.
Like what I did like was the representation. I thought that was really cool. Like the flat out like representation that happened there. Like that was really cool.
Like,
and I feel like yeah.
I also thought it was an interesting callback to Tarn Type, where Rain's character in the beginning is like somewhat homophobic, right? Where they have that moment in the cafeteria where he's like, "What is your brother gay?" And they're like, excuse me, what? Like your implication is that being gay is wrong.
Is bad, yeah.
And then there's another part where he makes a comment where you're like, oh, he's like has some like internalized homophobia because he's about to, you know, go real gay.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like mostly my frustration came out of the pacing, and then just like I felt like it was hard for me to buy into the fact that these 2 characters actually ever wanted to be together. Like it would like I very much just like I was like, what?
You know what you know what it reminds me of, and I also love this show, and you do not like this show, is This Is Love Story. It reminds me of This Is Love Story.
Hate This Is Love Story
because it has some cringe moments, and this.
Oh, my problem with This Is Love Story is not the cringiness of it. My problem with This Is Love Story is the like second-year college student and the boy that's still in high school.
Yeah.
That's my problem with it. Thank you.
But so the reason I love the This Is Love Story is the way that those actors deliver the cheesiest lines of all time. And it's just so endearing because Prom committed to that, and it has like one of my favorite lines in all of BL ever. And so it's so fun to watch these actors just like commit with their whole bodies to like the singing scene, which I feel like can be so cringy. And for some people, it probably really is. But I thought there was like a sweetness to
I
that.
didn't think that was cringy. I think, and that's the other thing is like, I was very nervous to do this series Sunday because I was like, people are really going to come for me. But like, what am I going to do? Lie? I could just sit here and be quiet. But like,
no, but
you might as well do the podcast by yourself at that point.
I think this is a great example of you can dislike a show. No, I don't feel like you dislike it. I feel like it's not for you.
Yeah, I would never tell somebody don't watch this show. Right. I would never be like, this show is pointless, you shouldn't watch it. Like right. For me, I didn't like the pacing. The storyline seemed it was very flat storyline to me. There wasn't like a lot of like depth or interest. Like there wasn't anything, and the spice just isn't the thing that keeps me hooked. Like the hope for more spice on like a personal level. And so like with the storyline being so flat, I genuinely like I was like, you can do this, you got this, like you can do this. But I think the actors very much did a great job. I actually really, really like BossNoeul as like actors, as people. Like I watched their ship work, I watched their appearances, I watched their interviews. Like I really like them as people, as actors.
They have a lot of depth. They're pretty interesting people.
I very much like them. I like the way they interact with each other. I don't think they go over the top. That's the other thing that I like about them. Like in their ship work and as their like couple, as their like CP. I think that they give you like the exact right balance of like, we're playing this game together without like trying to gaslight people. Which I really like, because that's the point of the ship work, is for it to be fun. And so like I think they're both really good actors. I think they both committed to these roles, and I think they were the only thing that were interesting about these characters, if that makes sense. Like their acting made the characters interesting.
Right.
The storyline is what just like wasn't it. And the pacing was the other thing I had such a hard time with.
It's funny you talk about the ship work stuff, because I feel like we see this a lot now in BL world, is that you have a lot of the media still trying to push the traditional ship work.
Right. Like, and are you guys really dating?
Yeah, and it feels like a lot of the actors have made a conscious decision to not lean into that, to just kind of be like, it's a show, we're acting, like
right.
To not really almost not really acknowledge that. You have these actors who are joking and who will like lean into it, but you can definitely tell they're like winking to the camera. Yuntan.
But like, Yuntan is a funny situation.
I'm obsessed with him. But so I feel like it's it is interesting, because hopefully we've learned from a lot of the like really popular extremes of ship work past, that if you look at it, and I've said this before, if you look at it in the context of these shows, the ship work makes so much sense, because they're extenuating their characters. They're playing a version of their characters for the public, because once that show is over and the ship work shifts, because like then it becomes more about these two actors that you just want to see more of.
Right.
You see a change in how they do their ship work, and it's really interesting to watch.
It's also what I love watching, when the ship work, while the show is airing, mirrors what's happening with the characters. That's fascinating. There's a current ship that has happened with, that it is like, it's been fascinating to watch their ship work like mirror exactly what's happening with their characters in the show. But I think BossNoeul made these characters interesting. Sure. I think if it had been any other actors, with how flat the storyline was, I think it would have been unwatchable.
I think Nolan really, I mean, and they definitely committed to these characters, because they talked about, they read the book, which I feel like rarely happens, before they read the script. Because like a lot of the source material for these are just like so over the top, so that it feels like a lot of times the script will be very loosely pulled from the source material,
or it's like scene by scene for scene almost,
right? And so I loved how they committed, because they talked about, they of course were asked about the NC scenes a lot, because when you have NC scenes that you really commit to, people want to ask about them. And every time they asked about them, they were like, yeah, we were like, hey, we know what these characters are feeling. We know they talk about it within the context of acting in the show, which I think is brilliant, because they were like, tell us about the NCC. And they were like, well, they're two characters in love and they can't be the same love the whole time. So of course it's going to elevate each time that they encounter each other intimately. So, and it's a way to do ship work while also being actors.
Right. Yeah. I really like them. And I do think like they're the reason that storyline was watchable, because there's like one scene in particular, like the scene where I was like, oh, okay, maybe, but it's just not for me. But
yeah,
was actually that scene that I was talking about where he's like, I'm bi.
Yeah.
And like just the look, you can see him processing that, and you can like, I have talked about before, I really like actors that act with their eyes, where like they don't have to have dialogue, and you can like see what they're thinking, or you can like see how they're feeling, and you feel what they're feeling just from their eyes. And I feel like that happened in that scene,
right?
Where like I was watching it and I'm like watching him like process that and be like, okay, so what does this mean for me, and what does this mean for this encounter, and what it like, and like how do I process, like what are the implications of this like confession essentially,
right?
And but he didn't have dialogue for that.
Right.
Like he did it all with his eyes, and I like that scene. I was very impressed by that scene. I did really like that, because I love when like Sia, the originator of like as an actor what he is what his character is thinking and feeling and going through just by a change in his eyes, and I think that's particularly impressive.
Yeah, I would definitely say Paiyu and Rain is a great example of gaslighting.
Yeah, that was the other problem.
Paiyu 1,000% gaslit Rain into this relationship.
I can't remember if we were talking about this on the podcast or where we were talking about this, but like, I think I was just telling you privately that like there's this trend on TikTok right now about all these women.
No, you talked about it on the podcast. Yeah.
Okay.
I forget what the
I forget how that came up. But yeah, fully like that's what happened here is like those crazy stories on TikTok from these women who are like, yeah, this coworker started, and so I asked him for like help stocking a shelf, and 5 years later we're married, and she's had this like diabolical plan. Like that's what happened here.
I mean, I feel like knowing the people that I know, half of relationships are gaslighting into being like, yeah, I'm a great person.
Well, I think it's less about I'm a great person and more about like gaslighting them into thinking that they like you, even though they don't. But then it turns out they do. Like, but that's what gaslighting is convincing them they really do.
Because at the end of the day, Paiyu is not a bad dude. Like, he's actually a really great boyfriend. Like, once they're in this relationship, like he's really nice to him. It's not like he is abusive or like.
But yeah, I mean, it's definitely like it's basically one of these TikTok like confessions of like, now we've been married for 5 years and it all because these are the steps I took to gaslight him into dating me. Like,
that
which I don't love necessarily romanticizing that, but I guess TikTok did it first. So like,
and you know, it's funny. I feel like they're so dramatic about Paiyu kind of orchestrating all of this from the beginning, because when he walks out of that room after he has spanked Rain for whatever reason, when he walks out of the room and he's like, if you really knew who I was, would you like me? And I'm like, is it really because you like broke his car so that you had a reason to talk to him? Is that what we're talking about?
I mean, don't we all like doesn't everybody at some point in their lives, at some point in their like dating lives, you have to have a reason to talk to somebody that you think is cute, whether they're like a classmate or like if you're in school, like high school or college, they're a classmate, or it's like a coworker, or like this new person that's come into your life, and you realize like, oh, okay, I'm attracted to this person, or I have seen this person behave in a certain way that is attractive to me, and so I want to talk to them. And nobody, I feel like true to life, like weirdly, this is kind of true to life. has the confidence to just walk up and be like, hey, I think you're interesting and cute, would you like to go out with me? Like, no, like, who has the confidence to do that? That is very rare. Some people do, but it is very rare,
which is why we have internet dating.
So for the most part, if somebody's like coming into your life naturally or whatever, and it's a classmate, a coworker, whatever, and you need even like, okay, like a friend's sibling, like I dated my fair share of my friends' brothers, and like there has to be some reason, because there's nothing tying you together, so you have to like come up with some reason for you to hang out, right? So that you can then like,
I feel like it's
get it there.
It's the classic thing of where females, I think, are known for this, where they like will feign interest in something a boy likes, because like that's what gets a boy, is showing interest in a thing they like.
Right, because boys don't really know how to talk to people. That sounds bad. But like, it's hard for them to like relate to other people that haven't already shown an interest in something they already know about.
Right.
And so like, girls are smart enough to know that like, if you can have this interest, although that whole stereotype does end up doing a lot of girls dirty, because like, for example, I legitimately really like sports. Like, I follow professional football. I follow professional soccer. Like, I'm watching the World Cup right now, and I have a favorite team in every single professional league in the world. And I legitimately watch those games, and I know all the rules. Like, I used to work in soccer, like all of these things. I legitimately watch sports and like them.
Yeah.
And so often, especially with the soccer, I'll get the answer. They're like, you don't really know. And like, I know that you just want to be able to talk to boys. Like, people assume that I only like and watch, especially soccer, because I like want to interact with a boy. And I'm like, no. Like, so often that happens. But I feel like weirdly it is true to life.
I mean, I definitely got into basketball in high school because of cute boys, but I still follow basketball and still like basketball, but like, there were cute boys too. What? Porque no los dos.
No, I watched lacrosse for like a hot minute because of a cute boy, but anything that I ever like started because of a boy,
is a bad example.
Anything I ever like got into because of a boy very quickly faded. Like, it wasn't an actual interest of mine.
Okay, so the second part of this storyline, Pai and Sky. Pai in the Sky.
This one is interesting. Cute. I did like this better.
I love this storyline. I love these actors. I thought they did a great job portraying this very sensitive subject in a very interesting way. And a very respectful way. Like, I didn't feel like it was nothing was romanticized about any of it. I felt like it was very like, I felt like there was healthy communication throughout. The only thing I have issue with in this part of the storyline was the production. And here's the thing, as people who have struggled with sound issues, I don't understand, because in the first part of the series, they used a boom. And for some reason, in the second part of the series, they did not use a boom.
I wonder if they filmed the second part first, watched the footage back, and was like, oh, damn, we need to change things up. I wonder if it was that.
I hope so. Because
the issue is they were mic'd up, so you can hear the like swishing of their clothes and their bodies.
Right. Like, and because it's a spicy show, their like bodies are touching regularly.
The same thing happens in Big Dragon, but I think we notice it less because Big Dragon has a really great usage of soundtrack and music. Yeah,
they don't use the sound from the like intimate scenes as much.
No, like you notice it when they're like changing clothes. Right. That's the only time you notice it. But so
that was the one thing that I was like, oh my gosh, like, you are an established production company. Like,
I really wonder if maybe they shot Fort and Pete first,
maybe,
and then like listened to the footage back, and they were like, okay, this is fine. Like, we need to be able to use this, but
we know better.
Yeah, now we're gonna change things up.
But yeah, for Pai and Sky, this had all the tropes that I love. It has the sick, the taking care of the sick.
Taking care of.
I mean, he went so soft. He, Pai, when he is taking care of Sky, and it's just like, he's so sweet. Like him just going above and beyond for this boy, where he's like switching phones so that he can like call him, and he's bringing him food, and like, I mean, he just goes so soft, and it's
it is doing nice things for someone you like going over the top.
But like, yeah, because he's not doing nice things for someone you like. I feel like this is like not just nice things. Like he's having to go out of his way to do these things, right? Like it's not like he takes food to him on a regular basis, and he like, I mean, I don't know. I don't have that much relationship experience, so I feel like when you're in a relationship, that's different. But when you're pursuing someone,
once you're in a relationship, all those things tend to fade. It's right, when you're pursuing someone that stuff happens.
But I was just like, oh my gosh.
I feel listening to you, I did like them better. And I was like, this is cute and interesting. I do, especially compared to like, if you think back of like Me, Mind, Why history, the handling of this was a lot better, was a lot more well done. Yeah. Like we're definitely moving into 2022 here. But hearing you talk, but I was like, yeah, they're sweet. Like I was watching it and I was like, this is like your classic like BL couple storyline.
Right.
But hearing you talk about this, I'm like, this is a great example of like men doing the bare minimum and getting praised for it.
I don't feel like it's the bare minimum, because if I was talking to some, like they're not even talking. That's the thing, is like he's actively pushing him away. There's no real relationship between these two. Like they hooked up once and then were separated for I think like 3 or 4 months before Pai figured out who Sky was. And then he starts to pursue him, and then Sky gets sick and he like spends like 3 or 4 days taking care of him
because he's pursuing him. He likes him. Like, I feel like taking care of the person that you're like,
I guess I don't have that. Like, I don't give men especially that much credit to like, if I'm on my deathbed. But
that's what I mean, is like that's the bare minimum, and like we give them so much credit that they can do less than that on a regular basis, and because they know when they do the bare minimum they're gonna get praised. Like listen, we all fall into this trap because you know what, maybe we're doing men a disservice by not expecting much of them,
I guess. As a single person who's been single a majority of my life, I've never had even a friend do that. Like a friend would not lay in bed with me and like wipe me down.
Well, because that would be weird and sexual.
Why is it sexual? You're just giving them a sponge bath. Doesn't have to be sexual. And that's the thing, is like there were definitely moments that I laughed and I told you this the first time that I watched it, where I was like, oh my gosh, you're gonna be so proud. One of the characters in the show that I'm watching, he like considered night caressing him, and then he stopped himself.
Yes. I did 10 out of 10 for that. But again, that's the bare minimum. Not being a weird night caresser is a bare minimum.
I love that scene where he's like sitting on the bed watching Sky sleep, and he's like, why am I watching this boy sleep? Like, I like how self-aware he is in those moments
that he's like,
what is wrong? Like, it's a fun fourth wall breakage almost for BL world, where you're like, everything that every fan has thought about in these moments, like it's fun to hear him say it. Which I thought was really good. The actor that played the villain in the second part, who played I forget the character's name, Gunn. He is an experience in real life, because he's one of those people that tweets in all caps and is like overly excited about everything, and is just like, I'm pretty sure really soft in real life, and is like a very sweet boy, because you know they say like the best boys play the worst characters.
Which again, like Jude Mai Katong Fa, Kauna.
And so
Chris and You're My Sky. Dome is Lord the worst. Chris is the best.
Yes. And so dang, this character is like maybe one of the best villains that has ever villained. He's rough.
I feel like Long and Turn Type was worse.
Yeah, but
bad. I think that's because Me, Mind, Why was like, okay, this was the right. I feel like May.
I feel like they're actually the same, because they both like orchestrated a gang rape of another person.
I feel like the age was like,
I mean, yeah,
made it
15
worse.
versus,
yeah.
But no, because Sky was also a teenager. He was in high school. Remember, he went to Bangkok for high school. He's just now in college. He was like, when I first moved to Bangkok, and we know he first moved to Bangkok when he was like 15. So May, what did you do?
Who hurt you?
Oh, no.
Oh my god.
I know. That, yeah.
But also, like, I feel like, I don't know, I just, maybe because I was like scarred by Long first, because I did not know that
Also,
Long was coming for me, that I see Long as the worst villain in all of BL history.
Because he also put up a front like he was Tarn's friend. That probably makes him worse, because like, and he was trying to play the good guy.
Sometimes I can see these twists coming, but when that Long thing was revealed, oh my god. So I think that's why I probably, yeah. May, damn girl. Who hurt you?
I loved the Don't Say No cameos that we got in this show. Very cute, yeah. We got the twins back. We got, I forget her name. Who's Rin's girlfriend in Don't Say No? Beam. We got Beam, and we got good old Smart.
Yes.
Sweet Smart. Oh, that was a cute scene. That pool scene, or that party scene, was funny because we've had this discussion before too, where it's annoying when characters don't shut things down before it like gets too gray, right? Like in Big Dragon, where Maincorn is being rubbed up on by this girl and like half of his clothes are off.
Yeah.
You're like, you could have.
You're like, you are a giant man and she's a very small girl. You can literally just put your hand on her forehead and do this.
So like, the fact that he's just sitting there letting this boy like caress him, you're like, okay. He doesn't need to be sitting on your lap, basically. You can be like, don't sit on the couch. You don't have to sit on the couch. You can stand COVID safety, 6 feet apart.
Listen, leave room for Jesus.
So yeah, those types of moments always annoy me, because I'm like, it doesn't have to get that far. Like, you don't have to be nice. Like, I feel like people do that in the vein of niceness. They're like, I
want to hurt your feelings.
Right. Like, I just want to be nice.
But to also bring this back to Big Dragon.
Oh my gosh.
This is the new Jude My Katong Paiyu and Sky.
Obviously.
Yai and P9, he has very, very nicely been setting his boundaries.
Yes, he has.
So it's achievable, people.
P9 is not taking the hint.
No, P9 is big dumb.
But also, if I had a whole bank in front of me, I would do everything till the very end, because they've already said that they're not boyfriends yet. So like, until they're married, he's got a chance.
And that
Justice for Big.
Okay, that's good. That's gonna be a fun series Sunday.
Oh my god. Okay. Anyways, Ford is also a great crier. That scene.
I like Pete. I'm very into Pete.
Yeah,
he's
scene,
so sweet.
That scene where I did like that they used the same trope for both storylines, where Paiyu and Pai do that whole "I don't like you anymore. I love you."
Yeah.
Paiyu did the you can't pursue me anymore because I'm gonna pursue you.
Right.
Like, Lord of mercy. But that scene was really beautiful, where he's like reading his book of like his like notes about Pai and how he feels, because like he hasn't been able to, like, he feels those feelings, but he hasn't been able to let himself feel those feelings. And I thought that was really like a really sweet moment, where they finally were like, okay, like, well, let's work through. And then we have healthy communication from there on out, because he's like, I need to tell this boy that I am going to be in a relationship with, because he's finally kind of accepted that this is happening. And I liked that he got to a place where he was like, okay, I can trust this guy, take it or leave it. As much as I can, I'm going to tell him how I like that he made that decision before the crisis.
Yeah.
Because you have that moment where he's like, I have resolved on my own, not because of trauma, to tell this boy that I like that I had this past issue. And so I thought that was a sweet moment.
There was definitely more for better or worse, and I think that everybody kind of agrees on this, more character development for Pai and Sky than there was for Rain.
Yeah, because
Rain especially, I feel like got cheated out of character development, like especially.
Yeah, because for that storyline, you didn't really need any character development. It was just about two boys getting together, right?
But
like there's not.
But you could it would have made that storyline less flat. Like you did need character. Every story needs character development because that's just like human existence.
The like little bit of kind of depth we see to Rain was when he has a little bit of moment of panic when he's telling Sky that he is dating Paiyu. I thought there was that moment where he's like, I thought he was gonna hate me, and like clearly that comes from like some kind of self-hatred based on like the beginning of the show.
But yeah, I feel like at least Pai and Sky had more character development to them, definitely. And I think the character that got the least development was Rain, which is why I think everyone is so craving just a full episode of those two getting to develop, getting to be human beings.
Yeah, because we don't know. We get a lot of story told about Paiyu, so we know a lot more about him.
Right.
And yeah, we don't know much about Rain. Because it's about Rain pursuing Paiyu most of the time.
Yeah, and it's so one note.
Yeah.
His storyline is so one note. The way that he plays the character is not one note. He does a great job with that for being given such a one note storyline.
Yeah. I feel like he narrates a good bit of what he's thinking, which is why I feel like you don't need a lot of character development to make him interesting, because you just know what he's thinking.
But I feel
not a lot of depth to him.
But I feel like I think that's the issue, right? Is there should be, because he's a human being and a person, and that's what makes stories interesting.
Right.
But I think he really, because of the self-narration, got cheated out of that character development that would give him more, that would make him more of a human being.
I'd be curious to know if the book gives you more depth on who Rain is, or if he's just
because I think it's hard to especially compare a novel to a live action, because novels, it is a lot of it is narration, right? That's the point of it. That's how you know what's going on, versus something that has been adapted into live action. As everyone says, actions speak louder than words. So that's why it's difficult to make a character that's mostly narrated feel human and feel like it has depth to it, is because when you're watching something, you're like, okay, well, they need to portray that, right? That's the whole point, is their actions need to portray this, not just a floating head telling me this is a thing.
Right.
So I think that was just a mistake in the terms of how they made the show.
Yeah.
Especially for a show that had so many episodes. I feel like they had time to do it. I mean, and they just didn't.
I mean, each couple only got 7 episodes.
Right, but that's what I mean, is overall they had so many episodes that they could have made this show very differently and had the development, I think, work in the favor of the character. For example, Secret Crush on You. Secret Crush on You is basically the same deal, where you had essentially 2 lead couples. And because of the way that they sort of co-developed, even though it took forever, not forever, but it took way longer for Hang and Surprise. But because we meet Hang and we meet Surprise, and it's them as people are developed, right? That's, I feel a really good example of a show that has 2 main couples that are developed properly.
Right. Yeah, very true. You know who isn't developed properly because he has no development? Dome from You're My Sky.
Yeah.
He's just a dumb boy. There's no depth to that.
No, he just makes bad decision after bad decision after bad decision.
Because he's got no character. He has no character. He didn't go to high school and get taught how to develop character. Did you guys have that in high school, character development? Oh, it was huge in my high school.
No.
You had whole.
It was a class?
It was part of I want to say it was like part of like some curriculum, maybe like a homeroom curriculum where it was like, it was like character development, and you had
we
like
did not do that.
how to be a good person, how to like
take
responsibility for life and decisions and character. I feel like it had a name like Dare, but it was like character building.
No.
So yeah, the special episode, pretty sure it's just gonna be a beach frolic. I'm excited for that. I love a beach frolic. Because we didn't get that. Did we get a beach frolic in Don't Say No?
No, they went camping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like the whole second season. And we had a lot of we
stood in the rain a lot.
Yes. The whole second season of Tarn Type was a beach frolic, basically, when they went to see Gulf.
And we had a beach frolic in the first season of Tarn Type as well.
I like barely remember the first season.
Yeah.
What was the beach frolic in the first season?
They go to, and he like meets with his best friend or whatever.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And he has that whole like, I hate gays still, and his best friend's gay.
It's like, I'm gay. Yeah.
That was amazing. There's also a really cute story. There's a lot of good out of series content for this show. Like they did behind the scenes, they did reactions, they did all the things.
That's why I say I think that like these actors, I really like BossNoeul as people. I especially like Pete. I really, really like Pete. Yeah.
He tells this really cute story. That photo on Pie's desk at the end, the beach photo, May messaged Pete and Ford and was like, can you send me a photo? We need to put it in the show. And the only photo that Ford had in classic boy fashion was like one on Instagram. Like it was filtered on his Instagram story. And Pete sent her like 5 photos and he was like, here you go. She was like, thank you. Clearly somebody in this situation was on top of it. It was very cute.
I feel like for this show in particular, which I guess it has echoes of Tarn Type, is like it's the actors that make it interesting. And that's why I was so nervous to do the series Sundays. I was like, people are gonna think I'm hating on these actors, and I'm actually not.
Yeah.
Like I'm hating on A, the way that this was made, and B, the way that this was written. Like those are the two things that like I just personally did not like.
Yeah, I feel like it's a simple story. It reminds me a lot of K-drama. I've watched a lot of K-drama where there's nothing more than 2 people getting into a relationship. There's no depth to it. There's no like there's some childhood trauma eventually.
Like there should be depth to falling in love. Like that's the problem I have with it.
But like I feel like there isn't always depth to a person,
but depth isn't always dramatic, I guess.
Right, and I think that's a thing like about
like depth doesn't have to be dramatic.
Like a TV show, the drama comes from like a lot of like past trauma, or
like you can have a layered character crazy without it being like trauma or drama. Like you can still be layered because like that's real of like human beings. Is like not everything comes out of pain and trauma. Sure, a lot of things do, and like those are the experiences that tend to impact us the most as people. But like there is depth to people who have just had experiences throughout their lives because they're not 5 years old with no, you know what I mean? Like,
but I will say, and I think that speaks to like who Rain is as a person, because we don't know a lot about him, but potentially if he grew up in a pretty charmed life, there's not going to be much character development because there's nothing to challenge him. And this potentially was the first thing that challenged him because he's a college student.
Right. But
like an 18-year-old college student.
There, again, like I said, there can be depth to people without it being like something that's like dramatic or making them change who they are. Like you can have like layers to a person rather than just like flat surface level, because everybody is like that, no matter like how rich you grew up or how poor you grew up or this or that or any of those things. Like every single human being has layers to them. Nobody is just surface level. And so like that's the problem with Rain.
Yeah, I feel like this show isn't for everybody, of course. just like every show. And so take it or leave it. It was very popular because the actors did an excellent job. They're interesting to watch. I feel like, honestly, and I feel like we both said this when we first saw these actors, we're like, meh, like they don't, I don't feel like they have a traditional look to them. They kind of grow on you over time. Like I personally,
I don't know. The first time I saw BossNoeul, I was like, those are cute boys.
The first time I saw the whole cast, I was like, I remember watching the teaser trailer and being like, oh, this looks interesting. But like I wasn't like blown over by like, because they're new boys. Like that's the thing with new boys.
Right.
Too,
you don't love
that,
them
like,
yet.
Yeah.
On like a personal level, you don't love them yet.
You're like, you haven't imprinted on them.
Yeah.
And so I felt like all of these actors did a great job. I
really like the OSTs.
Yeah, the music is always good in these shows.
Yeah. I liked the music video for the OST.
Yeah.
I especially liked the music video. There were some good points to this show, but it wasn't...
out of series content, 10-10.
Yeah, out of series content, these boys in their ship work, 10-10. For me, the storyline was just like pretty flat and pretty one note, and like a lot of it, especially with the first half, seemed to me to only be like carrying the flame of the hope of more spice, which is like on a personal level boring to me. The second half had more than that to it, but still like rang as a little one note for me. And so it was like, I probably would have dropped this show if we weren't doing an episode about it.
Yeah. I don't feel like, oh no, there's one show that I've dropped. And I wouldn't say, well, I might go back and watch it eventually. I feel like we should do a series Sunday on it eventually.
Aren't there two, or did you never started Unforgotten Night?
That was the one show I was talking about.
What about you? So you finished Golden Blood?
Yes.
I thought you dropped Golden Blood.
No. That's what I'm saying. Like, I've never dropped a show. Like, I've never walked out of a movie theater. I forcefully made myself fall asleep during one movie, but like, I've never left something in the middle of it. Yeah. Golden Blood, Lord of Mercy. But yeah, Unforgotten Night, I just like, it's a pretty long show, I feel like, and I haven't like just committed the time.
So wait, the first time that you watched Make It Right, did you make it all the way through?
Yeah. I only watched Make It Right because of the series Sunday.
Oh.
Like I watched it because you wanted me to.
I've had to watch Make It Right like 5 times to get all the way through it.
I think I've started Two Moons 2.
That's the other one. You never finished Two Moons 2. I knew there was another one. You never did finish Two Moons 2, which is highly offensive to me on a personal level, but it's fine.
That's the problem with BL World, is that depending on the season, if other things start happening, because I'm a live watcher, I get distracted by like a currently airing show and all the content that goes with it.
But Two Moons 2 was current when you were into BL because it was current when I was into BL.
What?
It was like just finishing up. 2 Moons 2. Not 2 Moons. 2 Moons 2 was just like,
oh my God.
Yeah.
Sounds like a lifetime ago.
And you got into BL before I did.
But I
So it would have been especially current for you.
I only watched 2 Moons because of Kim Cop. Because I watched Gen Y as it was airing. I'd like found Kim Cop and then I went into Gen Y. And then,
because I was gonna say 2 Moons was before Gen Y.
I know. And then I went back to 2 Moons because Kim Cop. But yeah, I
still can't believe you still never finished 2 Moons 2. Like, because Jung at the very least.
Yeah, I heard or saw nothing about. I was caught up in Tarntype. I was caught up in Tarntype and Mew Golf when I first got into BL.
But this would have been after you first got into BL because
I got into BL fall of 2020. Yeah, fall of 2020.
Yeah, it surprises me that you like.
I heard nothing about 2 Moons.
2 Moons 2.
2 Moons 2.
And this new one is 2 Moons 3. So I need everybody to stop calling. It's not 2 Moons 2. It's 2 Moons 3.
It's 2 Moons, the Ambassadors. I don't even think they have a 3 on there.
But they were stylizing it as 2 Moons 3. Yes. Anyways, especially because, June. But how dare you?
We were talking about this before. F4 / Boys Over Flowers / Meteor Garden. I watched Meteor Garden first, and then I tried to watch Boys Over Flowers, and I couldn't make it through it because I was like, I don't.
Boys Over Flowers is the worst one, I will say. Yeah. I think Meteor Garden is better than Boys Over Flowers, but I still think it's bad. I thought F4 was really good, actually, and not just because I really like Bright. Like, I think it was just really well done. I think that, like, all of the toxic stuff that was in Boys Over Flowers and Meteor Garden, at least by the time it made it to F4, like, they're basically telling you, like, this is toxic, don't do it.
Yeah, I like, they're not like saying that. They were like,
yeah.
I think the people who were surprised by the toxicity in F4 had no clue about the source material. And so going into it, they maybe have been shocked. But then I did hear a lot of people who had experience with that storyline were like, but they're telling you that
they're telling you it's bad. Like, they're telling you his behavior is bad.
Yeah.
Versus in Boys Over Flowers and Meteor Garden, you're supposed to think it's like cute.
Highly
and, like,
romanticize it.
Yeah.
I was like, no, especially Meteor Garden. I was like, why is she standing in the rain for 4 days?
Yeah.
He's the worst.
Yeah. So, like, in the other two, you're supposed to believe that, like, he's a good, like, you're supposed to think he's just going through something when really he's just being a dick.
Such a shitty person.
There is a difference between just going through something and being a shitty person. Like, this is happening in Big Dragon as well. Not for that to be our new Jude Micah Tongfa, but it is. And yes, like, at least
Dome is just a shitty person.
Yes, Dome is not just going through something.
V is just going through something.
V is definitely just going through something. I remain, look.
That's why you can't be a Dome defender. There's nothing to defend. He's
exactly.
just a shitty person.
Especially if you're a V protector. Yeah. If you're a V protector, it cancels out any like love in your heart that you could have for Dome. Like, you can't understand him. If you think that Lee is just going through something and you feel like he needs to be protected because he
oh my gosh, amazing. I feel like that brings it back to this cardigan because I bought this because of Jude Micah Tongfa.
You Are My Sky.
Because, they wore this.
And the same thing is happening in Big Dragon. I'm currently on the kick of I am a Yai protector, therefore I can never be a main corn defender.
I feel like there's no reason to defend main corn.
You can't. There is no team main corn.
I feel like neither one of them need defending. I feel like both
Yai legitimately is just going through something.
Both of them need to grow up.
Yai legitimately is just going through something.
He needs some character development classes.
He is just going through something.
He needs some therapy. That's what he needs.
He does. Yeah. He does. Main corn could get therapy and it still wouldn't do anything.
No. It's very true.
That's how I feel about it.
This has been
I'm sorry, I love you, Moss.
This has been Let's Talk BL. Don't forget to subscribe and follow all things Let's Talk BL at Let's Talk BL.